Hey y'all, this is Bri Bagwell, and you are listening to the Garrett Smith Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome somebody who needs no introduction but gets one anyway. 7-time Texas Female Vocalist of the Year. You've probably seen her on CMT or in a cardboard cutout holding some Rebecca Creek. The queen of Texas country and the best thing to come out of New Mexico since Allsup's burritos and turquoise, Bri Bagwell. How's it going, Bri?
Hi, I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing good. I only had to rehearse that for 6 hours, so maybe you can bring me out on tour so I can just introduce you that way every night.
I was just going to say, can you give me a clip of that? If we can't take you on tour, then we can just at least play it over the speakers. That was
there
great.
We go. I kind of like to give a brief background to everybody that tunes in because anyone listening to this will probably know who you are, but I like to kind of tell how I met the artists that come on this program and everything. And for you, it was 2017, right after Hurricane Harvey. I was still living in Houston. I went up to the relief concert at Spring at Big Texas, and everybody and their dog was performing at this thing. I mean, it was like a big who's who of artists. And you were performing with Jody Booth, and I texted Rich O'Toole, and I was like, hey, man, if you can introduce me to Bri Bagwell after the show, I'll buy your first round of drinks. Well, he didn't get my text. He takes off the other direction, but then you rounded the corner, and so met you anyway, and I didn't owe Rich a drink, so it was great.
So I saved you some money.
There you go.
Yeah, well, I remember that, actually. What a great lineup that whole day was. I mean, it kind of is such a weird thing because it kind of relates to now how a crisis, it's so sad, and the hurricanes and the pandemic now, but how it kind of also brings people together, and it's so heartwarming to see those types of concerts and people's charity in hard times.
It's definitely good. I think 3 previous guests I've had on this thing are people I met because of Harvey, or I met them during that time. And everybody kind of said what you just said. It's yeah, it was bad. We wouldn't want it to happen again, but at least we came out of something good, And I think music's the same way. We wouldn't have half our songs if we didn't have a bad experience there, here and there.
Right. Absolutely. And the hard times, my manager, he talks to me about this weekly. He's like, what we do in these hard times is kind of what defines us. And I think that's beautiful. And it keeps me from just, lazying through the days, which is easy to do in times like this, and keep trying to be a better person despite the circumstances, or better your craft, or whatever it is.
Yeah. Well, I've had a lot of people that ask me, it's hey, what are you learning, or what extra things are you doing with your free time now that there's a quarantine? I'm like, dude, I got busier. I don't know about you, but kind of when you're not on the road, or if you're not at work all day, and it's kind of okay, how do I tackle something with this time? I feel busier during this time. I
agree 100%. I told my dad I ignored 8 phone calls today. I just didn't have time, which is so crazy. But I think people have more time on their hands, and I'm getting to do some really cool things that I've been wanting to do. Like you and I have wanted to do this for a while, and I'm recording some videos. I'm writing a lot more. I've written 3 or 4 songs already during this quarantine. So I don't know. It's definitely, I haven't slowed down. I haven't had a minute to breathe, but I think that's also a blessing.
Well, you're not really known for somebody that slows down a whole lot. So it'd be kind of hard to picture, nothing getting done during quarantine.
Yeah. And well, thanks for saying that. But I'm home with my parents, and my dad he's an accountant. So he has 3 extra months, but he's still been working like he's in tax season, sun up till sundown. And then my mom's here, and she's planting a garden and moving bricks, and we're remodeling, and we're so I see them, and they're nonstop go. So that kind of, I guess, seeing it again, it reminds me, I think that's why I am the way I am. I have them to blame.
Yeah, and that's I totally hear that, because I'm one of those people, I cannot sit still. I have to be working on something or starting some sort of creative project. There is no full relaxation, no matter where I'm at. But I do keep waiting on somebody to film a music video on their cell phone and just put it out there. It's all right, we're all stuck inside. This is going to be the cheaply done production.
Right. No, I think that's so great, though. It's forcing us to almost kind of jump ahead with technology,
Oh, yeah.
Doing these live streams and stuff. None of us would ever had to figure that out if it was any other time, but we're forced to figure it out.
Yeah.
And, you know, my first live stream that I did, I had a USB mic into a computer and it was distorted and the sound was bad. And, you know, now I'm trying 2 different iPhones and angles. And it's like, I never thought in a million years that I would be trying to figure out audio, visual.
Oh, yeah. Because there's always a sound guy. You know, you just kind of nod at the sound guy and say, hey, need more monitor. You know, now you're at home and it's like, okay, don't know if anyone can hear me, but here we go.
Here we go. And I did one yesterday and it's kind of terrifying. I was texting Willie Braun and he was saying, yeah, it's the craziest thing to play for nobody and play for 1,000 people at the same time.
Oh yeah. That it is really weird. And when, like, I think we were like a week into everyone being at home, I was like, man, you know, I don't know. It just feels weird playing to a phone because it's almost like playing to one person, which is just really weird to me. And I'd rather play to a room full of people rather than just one person. So just staring at the phone, I'm like, well, I guess I need to try it because I'm sure a bunch of people start doing live streams. And it didn't take, 4 or 5 days later, everyone was doing live streams. And it's just weird because like we're all playing the same stages now. That's kind of like the weird equalizer of this whole thing. Yeah.
And then when it gets back out there, are we all going to keep continuing to do this internet thing, or is it going to go away, or is it going to be another outlet for us? It's very, very fascinating. And I'm loving it because, for example, last night, about an hour before I did my live stream, it was just one song. I asked my brothers if they wanted to sing with me, and they got on there, and it has today over 20,000 views, which is crazy because to me, it's like, these are my brothers that I've been singing with forever. And then, but people don't know that about me. And then on my phone today, I woke up to like 50 text messages from people just freaking out. And it's a really cool way. I would have never gotten to do that without the quarantine.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Because, I've heard this on previous interviews, but other people may not have heard this yet. You actually kind of started off playing a band with your brothers, right?
I did. When I was 14, we started our first band, and it was called On Tap. And one of my brothers played guitar, the other played drums. They're identical twins, and they were 7 years older than me. So they were 21. They were in college. It was like the cool thing to do. And we had another lead singer, and I played keyboard and sang lead and sang backups. And we played, the college bar every Thursday. And then I would play till 1 or 2 in the morning and get up and go to high school at 7 a.m. Friday morning.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but I was hooked, It was like, I don't know how good we were. I think we were all right, and it was so fun, and I was just like, this is what I want to do.
Well, y'all had a good name. On Tap, that's kind of catchy.
I agree. If I ever start another band, well, I keep trying to pull my brothers out of semi-retirement and revive On Tap.
Reunion tour.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's kind of like when I had AJ Gell on here, we were talking about AJ Vallejo, and who I'll mention later on another story. But we were kind of like, man, all those brothers, like they've got that band together, and then each of them does like a million different things. Like it's crazy how many projects somebody can form with different bands.
AJ is the king of that. He has 27 bands at one time. Jeez. And he still, I don't know how he does it, but he amazes me with his work ethic, and he's become obviously one of my best friends, and we're working together right now on a lot of stuff. And I don't know, he's building me some tracks in his studio, and he's so inspiring if you don't follow him. And what I hate most about him, besides that he can do all of these things that 10 people should do, I hate even more that he drinks from the fountain of youth. He looks like he's 21 years old.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I was going to save the story for later. I'm just going to tell it now.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. So you played at Saxon Pub a few months ago, and a buddy of mine had never seen you perform before. So I was like, all right, let's go to the show. So, I live in Temple. It's only about an hour drive from where I'm at. And wife had to work that night. I was like, I've got nothing else going on. I said, dude, we're going to a Bri Bagwell show. He's like, okay, cool. So we go down there. The place is packed. Like, we're standing at the side of the room. It's like shoulder to shoulder. And you started playing Cheat on Me. And I told him, I was like, oh, yeah, she just came out with a video to this. She did it with a guy named AJ Vallejo. He's like a big timer around Austin. He's like, oh, okay. I was like, dude. He's like 50 and looks 20. I don't know what the deal is. And this guy standing about 4 feet away from me turns around and just kind of like, what's up? And I turned around, I was like, well, that's AJ Vallejo. I'm glad I wasn't talking crap.
That is hilarious.
I was like, hey, man. So yeah, I talked to him for a minute, but it was just like, Careful what you say. You never know who's standing near you.
Oh, that is so funny. I did not know that. That's so great. I'll have to tell him that I'll have to tell him that I heard that story.
Right.
I actually was his roommate. He was my roommate for a year, and we had the best time. We were roller skating in the apartment, and he's a really amazing cook, actually. So he would come in with like crepes, and he'd be like, "Wake up! Let's write songs." And here's a French dish. Like, what? Okay. We had a really good time, and so actually we're going to be working together. I'm sure we'll talk about that later, but we're starting to work on some new stuff.
I love how many things we're like, we'll get to that later. A lot of good stuff cooking up. Well, speaking of new stuff, what are you kind of working on for the future? When the floodgates open and every musician just scrambles across the scene again, what are kind of some of the things we should be looking for from you?
Yeah. Well, I've been writing for sure. I'm writing for a new record, but I've been writing songs that are half in Spanish, half in English.
Oh, cool.
And so I'm not sure whether the original plan was to do, like a little EP with AJ, of some Spanish covers and some songs half in Spanish, half in English. I'm not sure if we're going to keep on that route or if I'm just going to put those songs as part of another full-length record, and kind of make that like the theme, because I grew up in Las Cruces, New Mexico, which is here where I am now, and I consider that just so much of my culture. It's who I am, and I sing Selena every night at my shows, and so I've been writing kind of these, sexy little Spanish influenced songs, and I think I'm going to do a record that's either completely that or highly influenced by that. So that's the next thing on the list.
That'll be incredible. Have you ever sung a Selena cover in Corpus yet?
Oh, let me tell you. I have always loved Corpus because they have incredible Texas country radio stations, and they have like 4 of them. It's really, it's great, and we've always done really well in Corpus, but as soon as I sang Selena in Corpus, now my crowds have like doubled there just because. And if I go to Corpus and don't sing Selena, I think I will be like forever banned. They won't let me back.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Didn't you have a Band from Santa Fe album or EP early on? You can have a Band from Corpus as a sequel. Band from Corpus. Well, I just spent some time in Santa Fe. This last week, I went up to Santa Fe just for a few days, and of course, we were in a house and not around people, but we walked around the plaza and nothing was open, and the plaza was empty, and you'll never ever see it like that. But I thought about posting that picture and making the joke that everyone is banned from Santa Fe right now. I'm awesome. Here, nobody else is. Yeah. It was so weird. I saw that thing you posted on Facebook of just like Austin, how there was just nobody on the street or anything. I was like, man, that's just weird. Because I've seen Houston that way, and now to see Austin that way, it's just like, man, you complain about traffic when it's there, but then it's just weird to see it without it.
Yeah, and the scary thing is how we're all going to recover from it, and who's going to survive and who's not. And it's just, when it's completely out of your hands, and you know how it is being a musician, we're going to be the last people that kind of get to come out of this. And there's really no date. I can't call my band up and say, okay, guys, here's when we're going to go back to work. We just don't know. And the uncertainty of it that's the hardest part, I think. And of course, we're just praying for small businesses everywhere, and I don't know. It's gonna be okay.
It's going to
eventually.
Be. We'll get
there.
But it's just weird.
The uncertainty of not knowing when, I think, is the hardest part.
Well, and the music world is so weird because there's no set business model. It's something that evolves so much. It's kind of like all the musicians are basically, it's like a marathon when they cut the ribbon and everyone just takes off. And you've got the rescheduling of the festivals, rescheduling of the big headlines. And then you've got the singer-songwriters that are starting out, just like, where are they going to get a gig? It's just kind of a weird process.
Right. And then, with my guys, it's like, I try to pay them as long as I could, but you can't pay them forever. I have 5 employees, basically. And so I was kind of doing some things to raise money to pay them as long as I could until, like, the government stuff kicked in. But how many new bands I have just started that are really great, but they just started.
Yeah.
They don't really have the foundation to fall back on, and that to me is heartbreaking. And of course, everyone coming out of the gate, if everyone books stuff at the same time and we try to have all the festivals reschedule in the same month, that could be disastrous too. So I mean, for me, my management were really taking, like, my manager, who's great about taking a bird's eye view of, okay, when we come out of this, we need to be prepared for the market to be, you know, really saturated, and we need to be thinking long-term. We need to be thinking new album. We need to be thinking 2021 right now, which is, it's very hard to do as a musician. I'm like, I want to play tomorrow at my favorite bar.
Oh, I know. And I miss it too, because it was weird for me. So I really didn't schedule much for April because I'm just trying to get my album out. Basically, I'm taking my first 2 albums and just redoing all the vocals completely. And I had 1 session left, and that's what I was going to do during April before playing any more shows. And now I'm kind of like, well, crap, I don't know what to do now. But, I no longer regret not having any shows for a couple months, because, like, well, that actually kind of played out. But it's just, it all works itself out. And your band will definitely bounce back for sure.
Yeah, and I'm kind of, we have all of our May still on the calendar, but I'm pretty sure it's going to all get canceled. But the craziest thing was, I moved early in March. I moved, by the grace of God, I found a place and I fell in love with it. And the next day signed the lease, and the next day moved in. Well, the next week I left to the Bahamas to go on a vacation with Mark McKinney and Cassie McKinney. And we were there, we didn't have cell phone service, and every few days we would have service. And so we would get service and it would say, hey, there's, due to this pandemic, man, your shows this weekend are canceled. I'm like, wow, okay. And then the next few days we would get service and it would be like, oh, your entire March is canceled. And then the next time we had service, it was like, the grocery store shelves are empty and you can't leave your house. We were in a different, in the middle of the ocean. It was really, really bizarre. And so came back, all of March was canceled, and then we just went ahead and canceled all of April. And I don't know. We're not really counting on anything until June or July, I think.
So who'd have thought it? You're swimming with pigs, and that's not the weirdest part of your day.
Oh, that's great. I'm gonna post that picture and quote you on that
awesome.
On my Instagram. That's great.
That would be so weird, just to like randomly phase into like the Ashton Kutcher gif. Like, what is going on?
Yeah, what is happening? And then we flew back, and I think if we would have flown back 2 days later, we might not have been allowed back in. We really kind of barely made it back in, and then came back. We came back to a completely different United States than we left, which was insane. And we're thankful for, like I said, like the charity of people comes out right now. Like everyone's been so kind. Our sponsors have been so great. I don't know. It's been so great to see how big people's hearts are right now.
Yeah. Well, speaking of great, let's play your new single. How's that sound?
Yeah, it just got shipped today.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Awesome. This is As Soon As You.
As soon as you try to fence me in, I'm breaking loose. As soon as you try to tie me down, I'm in my running shoes. Baby, it's no use. As soon as you try to lock me up, I'm sneaking out. As soon as you bring up a ring, I'm nowhere to be found. And halfway out of town. So don't try to tame a Mustang. Don't try to catch the wind. Just learn to love that something for the something that she is. I'll find that place at my own pace. If you wait patiently, eventually I'll want to say I do. I just won't get there as soon as you. As soon as you take my guitar or draw the line, I'd love to do the honors of leaving you behind, and I'll be fine. You tell me that it's not true, but it's what I think. If I settle down, I'll live my life behind a kitchen sink, sneaking a drink. So don't try to tame a Mustang, don't try to catch the wind. Just learn to love that something with the something that she is. I'll find that place at my own pace if you wait patiently. Eventually I'll wanna say I do. I just won't get there as soon as you. I want the aisle, I want the dress. We'll both be crying happy tears if you can wait just 10 more years. So don't try to tame a Mustang, don't try to catch the wind. Just learn to love that something for the something that she is. I'll find that place at my own pace if you wait patiently. Eventually I'll wanna say I do. I just won't get there as soon as you. I just won't get there as soon as you.
Awesome. So take me through your story as a musician.
Yeah, from the beginning.
All the way back.
Yeah. Well, I was 3 years old. And I went to this daycare where we would put on these programs twice a year, and you would act and sing. And that's how I started singing on stage. And my very first performance, I was, I think 3, and I was terrified and kind of had a mess up in the rehearsal. So my mom had to bribe me with a doll if I went on stage and sang. And she has video of it, and I hope she never shows anybody. She's right here. I'm like, you better not leak this video, Mom, to Garrett. But yeah, I sang and kind of did that. Oh, my mom says to call her. She said, call me. And
there we go, everybody. Stay tuned for the video.
Stay tuned. So I started singing on stage at a young age. And then, like we talked about earlier, at 14, we put our first band together. And I guess I was 13 when I found a keyboard in my parents' garage, and I was just kind of taught myself to play it. My parents were kind of like, okay, you know, she really loves this and she's really interested. And they bought me a used church upright piano that I still have here at my parents' house. And I taught myself piano. So I played in that band when I was 14. I played keyboard. And then when I got to college, really, my neighbors in college, they were 4 boys. They wanted to learn how to play guitar. And so they were like, teach us how to play guitar. And I said, I don't really know how to play guitar. I just know from watching my brother's fingers what to do, kind of. So I showed them what I knew. And then I was like, hey, I can do this. And so that's how I started playing guitar. I didn't do that until college. And so taught myself guitar too. And just started kind of making friends. You know how it is when you play guitar and your friends play guitar, you all you find each other. And I think it was my senior year in college, Curtis Grimes was playing a show downtown on 6th Street, and he called me up to play a song during his set, and I played one song, and the bar owner was like, hey, do you want your own show?
Oh, wow.
And I said, sure. And that's how I got my first gig in Austin, was being invited up. And my first gig, you know, was an hour long, but I didn't know an hour long's worth of songs on guitar. And so I remember playing that first show, and my fingers were almost bleeding from not being used to playing. And then he gave me a show every Monday after that. And then I had my first regular gig. And then the rest just seems like history when you meet people and It's
crazy how that works. You can try for years and play 100 shows before you finally get noticed. But it's like, sometimes it's just that one moment where it's like, that's where you needed to be.
Yep. And my first booking agent saw me there at that show that I played. It was called Mother Egan on 6th Street. It's not there anymore. But he saw me play there, and he was like, I want to be your booking agent. And that was kind of unheard of for a girl. to get a booking agent that easy. And he had, at the time he had Scooter Brown, and he had Josh Ward, and he had Cody Johnson, and he had Adam Hood for a little bit, and he had Clayton Gardner, who I had become friends with. And so when you asked on your email how I got to College Station, that's actually how I met my booking agent playing that gig in Austin that I had, and he lived in College Station, and Clayton Gardner lived in College Station, and him and I were playing a lot together. So after college, I just packed up and moved down there, and I had that whole circle of musicians I was just talking about, Josh Ward and Jody Booth and all my buddies that I'm so close with now. We were on the same booking agency 2010. I want to say that was 10 years ago.
Oh gosh, 20. Yeah, I know it's 2020, but when I still think of 2010, I'm like, that cannot be 10 years ago.
I know, it flies by, and it's crazy to think about that we were all, sitting in the same room with Cody Johnson, Josh Ward, and now to see everybody has kind of grown. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, just a little bit of talent on that roster.
Yeah, just a tiny bit, and so thankful to him for giving me a chance early on. And so Clayton Gardner and I played not as a duo, but just we would split. We did every 4-hour acoustic restaurant gig, and we would split the money. And it wasn't ever great money, but we did that anywhere anyone would book us every weekend, and it was hard at the time, but looking back, it was the easiest thing. It was great.
That is pretty cool. I remember, do you remember Shotzi's? It was like on the end of Northgate. I forgot what it is now. But yeah, I remember the first time I saw Clayton play, he was filling in for somebody else. I don't even remember who was supposed to be there that night. We didn't even know there was music, but we walked in. It was me and 2 other guys. In fact, the guy I brought to your Saxon Pub show, it was me, him, and one other guy. And Clayton's just kind of sitting there with one other person, acoustic guitar, and I was like, this guy's really good. It's like, there should be more people in here.
He's so great, and still one of my really good friends. And so we played together, a lot, every weekend. And before I had the band, obviously. And I think that, people, especially girls now, are like, I really want a band, and I'm tired of these 4-hour gigs. How come you don't have to do those? And I'm like, I did those. Yeah. I did every one of them. I would put my phone in my t-shirt, and I would drive home in the middle of the night, and I would call my mom on speakerphone, and I would unload my PA at 4 a.m. because I couldn't afford a hotel room. When you're only making a couple $100 to play, you can't go spend $100 on a hotel room and gas. So I would drive home, and I would put her on speakerphone, and I would unload my PA over my patio little fence there, and then run inside and pull my PA in there and tell her I was safe. And after driving home 2 hours from wherever I was playing, and I did it. And I think it's been so long now since I've done those gigs that people don't think that I did, but I played every one of them
well,
for a long time.
I'm going to have to play the soundbite when I edit this because I'm about to name drop. But Stephen James told me after he got the new band of the year at the Texas Radio Awards, he said people would ask him, it's like, man, how long did it take you to get new band? He's like, 20 years. It's like you got to pay your dues for a while, and it's not glamorous.
Oh yeah, Zane's Overnight Success song is just the perfect. Yeah, I get that all the time. I'm up in, people when they introduce me on stage, up and coming. It's like, how long are you up and coming? I guess
that's a long staircase.
Right, totally.
Well, that's one question I've got is, you ended up at College Station, and a lot of Texas country artists come out of there, and they usually the way it goes is they graduate from A&M and then they head over to Austin. You went to the school in Austin and then found your way to College Station. So what made you choose University of Texas? Because, aside from you and Drew Fish, J.R. Castillo, it's like you don't always think of that as the hotbed for Texas country, even though it's definitely a music place.
Right. And I think, I was from Las Cruces, and my dad's an accountant. And at the time, UT was the #1 accounting school in the country. And I only applied to 2 colleges. I had a full academic scholarship to New Mexico State, and I applied to ASU, and I applied to UT Business School. And the chances of getting into UT Business School out of state are very slim. And when I got accepted, I was like, okay, I have to go. And the reason I wanted to go is it was such a good business school. And also, when from an outside perspective, you're like, Austin's the live music capital of the world. Like that's perfect. It's music and it's cool. And actually going there, it was different because it's not really the Texas country live music capital. And so it made a lot more sense at the time for me to move to College Station. It was close to East Texas. It was close, I could still be in Austin in under 2 hours, and Houston. And so it was kind of the perfect place to be. And I didn't really know, I don't know. I just thought, oh, Austin, it's a music city. I'll go. And it was really important for me to get my degree. And I'm really glad that I did. I don't regret that for a second. I'm not, super young doing this. I definitely didn't even start until I was out of college, but I think that that's okay. I don't think that should be frowned upon or anything. If you want to go to college and get your degree, you should be able to do that. And I did.
Absolutely. I mean, music's something I always did just kind of as a hobby on the side. I was terrified of singing in front of people. I mean, I didn't really start songwriting to play for people until about 5-ish years ago, and I'm 32. So, it all just kind of happens. But it's kind of funny.
I'm 32 as well. I didn't know that we were exactly the same age.
High five.
High five.
So we're both kind of like, really? 2010 was 10 years ago? Crap.
Right. Well, and I think that it's important to mention that like some artists, when they're 16, they have their voice and they have their message and they have their sound. I was not that artist. It took me a long time to figure out my own voice, what I wanted to say, who I was, what made me different. I wasn't 16 and I knew that, I was more like 27 and I knew that. And I hate that, especially as a female, there's like the stigma of me being like older. Like it shouldn't matter. It should be like, this is who I am right now. And it doesn't matter that I'm, Nashville a lot of times will be like, oh, you're not 16.
Oh yeah. Well, I think
they're getting way
Texas
better
country,
about it now,
I view every Texas country artist I meet as 25, even if they're 50 or if they're, 19. Like everybody kind of has that same mentality at some point where it's like, okay, our ambition is 25 years old. So.
Absolutely. And we kind of never grow up.
No,
so.
That's the truth.
It's fine. It's fine.
It's funny you mentioned Austin. Like it's not really the Texas country capital because when my wife and I lived in Houston for 3 years right after College Station. And people are like, oh, man, Houston's huge. You can probably play anywhere. I'm like, not unless you're a rapper or a metalhead. Like if you're just starting off in country, it's really not the place to be. Right.
And that's it's so hard because people's perception of, like we were talking about the 4-hour gigs earlier. It's not the bar owner's fault. They don't know. They think, 4 hours is. And for this much money, but I think it takes away to play those long shows.
Yeah.
From the actual, you don't want to just be background music for 4 hours. I would rather go out and put on a 90-minute show, but you have to do those for so long. It all seems very backwards when you're in it, like, and there's all these places, but then they're packed and they may not be listening. Sometimes back in the early days, I would like change the words to songs just to see if anyone noticed, because they don't a lot of times. And, they are at brunch, there's 2 bottles of champagne in. And so I don't know. I agree with you. You would think that there would be a lot. Think of just like the listening rooms. You can name the listening rooms on one hand, and they're very cool. And they usually, when you can get to play them, they usually are really good for your career, but it takes you forever to get there.
Oh yeah. And that's why like 3-hour shows or the 4-hour ones, what I'll do is just with a band or something, and sometimes even myself, I'll just take the same set list that's an hour and a half and just play it twice, because at a lot of bars, there's going to be people cycling in that weren't even there in the first half. It's like, well, I want them to hear this song too. But it is fun.
And if they are there that long, they're too drunk to notice.
I like to troll people just to kind of see who's paying attention, and I get a chance to use my bleeper here in a second. So do you know a Rock House bar in Trailer Park in Austin? It's kind of like out by Lake Travis.
Yeah.
It's like by the Oasis, and I played there, and it kind of, about middle of the night, a new group kind of cycled in, and they just wanted to drink. So I played a really soft, smooth, romantic-sounding version of Crazy Bitch by Buck Cherry.
Amazing.
And right about halfway through, I think everyone caught on. It's like, what the heck is he doing?
I love that. Oh my gosh. I was just brainstorming today what we can do, because we have all this time to kind of revamp our set. We've had the same set for a lot longer than we normally do, because we've kind of been shuffling band members a little bit.
Yeah.
So we've had our same set for a long time. I like to change it up, and we haven't. So I've been like, what can we do? And I was thinking, you know what we should do, and I've been wanting to do forever, is a Disney song. I think we're going to do a Disney song, but I'm saying it to you now because now I have to do it.
Now you have to do it. You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah, exclusive.
So how long did it take, after college before you were recording your first songs and putting those out there?
Oh, man. So I finished Band from Santa Fe. It came out in 2011. So I started recording it, I think, in 2010. And I actually recorded it with a man named Billy Hellman in Huntsville. So I was living in College Station, and I would drive to Huntsville, and I could only afford one instrument at a time. So that record is so crazy to think about because I didn't really know as much as I know now about beats and instruments and studio sounds and anything. So we would record, and it would just be the bass player, and he'd be like, "What do you think of that bass line?" And I'm like, "I don't know," because I couldn't hear the whole project, but we could only afford to do some here and there. And he did such a great job, and he, let me pay as we go. And I still love what he did with that record, and it really got played a lot on radio. And I don't know, I'm always thankful to him. I saw him this year at Steamboat. It was really special. But yeah, that came out in 2011, but I took almost a year to record that record. So anybody that says, "Oh, I can't do it, I don't have enough money," I'm like, I feel you, but if you find somebody that's willing to work with you, even if you can't do it how you want to do it, just do the first one, because you never know what's going to happen from that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think a lot of people underestimate, and I say this myself included before I went into a studio. You really underestimate how much it takes to record each instrument and every part, and the cost and everything. Because, like I mentioned earlier, originally I was terrified to sing in front of anybody. I was just a bass player. I was trying to put together a Southern rock band, didn't want anything to do with singing. But the singers kept quitting for just flaky reasons. I'm like, you know what? Screw y'all. I'm going to go in and just do this myself. And when I did, it was like, oh man, there's a lot to this.
Singing in the studio is like the hardest thing ever. And I've gotten... But you just hate your voice. I'm like, I hate the sound of my own voice. And then you get a lot better at it. But then with this last record, I chose a producer that I really wanted just to capture something different. And she really did. She was really into the groove, because she's a bass player. So you're probably a lot better at this than me. But Rachel Loy in Nashville, she was like, I want people to hear this record and they're going to be bobbing their head and singing along or jamming out, and they're not going to know why. And it's going to be because we're going to capture this great groove. And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I think we did, though. It's just each producer has a different thing, and I think you just need to find that for each record it's something else for me. Like for my first record, it was like, okay, who will work with me with this budget that I have? And for my second record, it was like, okay, I'm on the road all the time. I need someone that I can record with 2 days a week and go out on the road. That's also really great. And that was Stormy Cooper. And for my next record, it was, I want someone to make me and my songs and dissect them and do something we've never done. And that was Rachel Loy. So I kind of think, people are like, how you're re-recording those vocals on your first record. Man, I wish I could do that too. I feel that so much, but I think you have to kind of embrace like, hey, this is where it was at this point in my life. Do I love it? Was it the best? Probably not, but it was what I could do at that time.
Yeah. No artist really sounds the exact same now as they did at the very beginning. And it's great. It shows kind of like how you grow and how you advance.
Right. And so I'm in your boat, though. I want to go record a couple songs for my first record over again. I can't let it go.
Yeah, I'm a bad perfectionist. And so I didn't know how to sing when I did the first record. And so a lot of the instrumentals will be the same, but I'm kind of like, oh my gosh. Like I listen to it now, I was like, I sounded like I had a freaking sinus infection on half these songs. So I was like, I've got to go do this again. So it's been fun redoing it, but I just got to wait on quarantine to get it out there.
Yay, I can't wait. That's so exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Every time I put out a record, I always text my mom, I'm never doing this again. It is so much work. I think like people don't realize, from beginning to end, the amount of work you put into buying a record or to making a record. And especially now, people don't buy records like they used to. So it's like you're literally putting all of this work and time and energy and money into this thing that probably not many people are going to buy. And you're almost just doing it. It's like a vanity. Like I did my last record for me.
Yeah.
And if people loved it, that was a great byproduct, because you're never going to recoup what you're going to spend recording a 10-song album in Nashville.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of songs, I'm going to play one of your early ones here. I'm going to play Dear John Deere.
Yay! Awesome.
Nothing fancy, just a 56 John Deere tractor. We're nothing fancy, just two people living off the land. Lately he's been coming in, kicking and screaming. The engine keeps dying and the oil is leaking, and can say, Dear John Deere, you know we share a man who works as hard as he can to give us a home. We've had hard times, but it's the toughest I've seen. For repairs, just some late nights praying. I ask God to help us fix our broken man. He wouldn't ask his brother, he's too proud for that. If only you knew just where we are at. Oh,
Okay, so I really like that song because it hits home for me. So my parents, my dad came from a ranching background. My mom came from cotton farm background. And my granddaddy, like, until he got sick and, he passed away 2003, he had a cotton farm. And even in that last year, he had planted cotton, even though he was sick. I mean, it was like the man did not stop working. And he got too sick to work. And you had a cotton field that needed, you had to strip the cotton and everything, but he couldn't do it. And all the local farmers, it was in Childress, Texas, so shout out to anyone from Childress that might hear this. All the local farmers came out there, stripped his cotton for him, and took it to the gin for him. And to me, that was like one of the coolest small town, like farm struggle stories ever. And so any songs about tractors, other than maybe, you know, the Kenny Chesney one, are all like, man, that hits home, you know? It's like people who know the country struggle, the farm background, because, you know, country's more than neon lights and boot scooting. You know, there's a struggle that goes into it, the more real it gets. And so when I heard your song, I sent it to my mom immediately. I was like, dude, you got to hear this song. It's like, it's so real.
Oh, well, that's so awesome. It's funny that you say that because my mom has a bunch of cotton, like, right here in her living room. I'm going to have to send you a picture in a vase. Awesome. It's really cool. Or in a big pot. That is a beautiful story. I can't wait to tell my parents that, because both of my parents grew up on farms and my grandparents on both sides were farmers. So, you know, they grew up picking cotton and, you know, eating tomatoes right off the vine. And my mom talks about that. And so that song is actually about my grandparents. And the same thing with my grandfather. He was farming. I think he was like 93 when he was still outside planting pumpkins and, you know, and he just passed away at 97 last year. And so that song is about my grandparents and on both sides. And my dad kind of helped me with a couple lines in there that he changed that I thought were really important. He couldn't ask a banker. He's too proud to ask the banker for money. And my dad changed that to, he couldn't ask his brother because he was like, it's harder to ask your family. I don't know. He changed some really key lyrics in there, and I think made the song really even more special than it already was. That my dad helped me write that. So, and I think that's one of the ones I want to re-record. I think it needs like a really stripped down version. That's on the to-do list, Garrett. So
another one. You heard it here first, folks.
This to-do list is so long. It's longer in quarantine.
The upcoming plans list is just going to grow the longer we're stuck at home.
I know. We're going to get off this phone call with more things to do than we started.
You and me both. So your career, in my opinion, it's been booming over the past couple of years because I mentioned in the intro the cardboard cutouts with Rebecca Creek, and you know you were on the TV show with Travis Tritt and all that. And this is, again, my opinion. Everyone's got their own opinion. I think you had the best album of 2018. Just saying. But a lot of people would look at that and be like, okay, well, she could start charging for meet and greets and, you know, be one of those artists that's kind of harder to reach out and access and all that kind of stuff. But every show I've been to, you've gone right to the merch table. You've talked to everybody. You remember people. I mean, it's like, what keeps you humble and down to earth whenever success starts building up?
Oh, that's very sweet. Well, I don't think you have to try to stay humble in this business. It humbles you whether you want to be. No, I'm just kidding. But every night is different. For real. Some nights it's sold out, and then the very next night there's no one there. So you just never know. And it's such a roller coaster. And then even when things are going really great, then, you know, your bass player gets an offer from a really great band and you lose your guy, and you're not mad about it, but you know, you have to start over. Or your trailer, you know, right now my trailer is just, I got to buy a new trailer. It's like, there's always something to kind of, but I think my favorite thing is when I moved to Austin and I went to see all of the bands that I loved. I stood in line at Hastings to meet Randy Rogers and have him sign my CD when I was in college. And I saw Aaron Watson stand there for 2 hours and meet everybody that was in line to see him. And I think that's what makes this scene very cool, is that everyone is pretty accessible. And I don't know. I like to meet people at the end and thank them for coming. And some nights it's 20 minutes, some nights it's 2.5 hours, but I always make it a point to go, if you're going to spend $25 buying a t-shirt, if you want me to sign it, that's the least I can do for you buying a ticket and putting gas in our tank. So yeah, it's also my favorite part. You know, I love meeting people, hearing what they have to say.
Well, it's funny. So it may have been more than a year. It was like, we met at that spring benefit concert. So it was like a year or two later, you were playing at Armadillo Palace. and I was hanging out with Ty Johnson and Hayden Sears kind of towards the back or whatever. And, after the show, I was kind of like near the merch table with them, and another guy walks up whose name was also Garrett. That's the only way I remember this. And he was like, "Hey, have you met Bri?" I was like, "Yeah, it's been like a year though. There's no way she remembers who I am." You walk up, you said hi to him, you turn around, you're like, "Hey, I remember you from like spring last year." I was like, "Oh my gosh." So
That's awesome.
You're really good at approaching people like that. I mean, it's just like that. I think that's what builds up a fan base with the music. It's like people buy into the songs more if they're like, okay, this person's for real, rather than, oh, I used to like the music, but then they were cocky and that kind of a thing. So you've definitely got that going for you.
Yeah, thank you. My biggest fear is that, because you can catch, people have said, "Oh, so-and-so is rude," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, they're not. I've played a million shows with blankety blank, and they've never been rude. It must have been a bad moment." And it is hard to be like on all the time, I guess. But I hope nobody ever catches, or if they do, it was just a fluke, or I was, I don't know, not paying attention or something, because I think it's just the only reason that we are able to do what we do. Nobody buys records, really. There's streaming. We make a living off of playing live shows.
Yeah.
I make my living off of playing live shows. And so if those people aren't there and they're not buying tickets, the bar doesn't book me back. So that's just the facts. But it's also like, I enjoy it. I really, I don't do it because they buy tickets. I mean, that's part of it, but I really do love meeting people. And they bring the kids to the shows. That's the best, when they bring their young ones. And I'm like, "I'm really sorry. My songs are mostly about beer and whiskey, but I still want this little girl to know that she can go on stage and sing if she wants to." That's also very important to me.
There's a little bit of Jesus to your songs too. So, you're covered. I
balance it out, Garrett. Whiskey and Jesus.
There you go. Good song title right there.
Yeah.
So,
hey, there's another one for the to-do list.
So how do you prevent getting burned out? Because, you mentioned that it does take a lot of work to do this, and nobody would go through the struggles of being a starving artist and building up if they didn't enjoy doing it. And like, you've been an independent, I can't even talk now, independent artist who's kind of built your way up. Like, what prevents you from getting burned out?
It's funny that you say that, because, we always talk about burnout where you don't know you're burned out until it's too late.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay. And I think for me, at least, God has always put like weird things at weird places where, okay, I really needed this break, or I needed this show to cancel, or I needed something. But I tell everyone that I work with, everyone on my team, I want to go full speed ahead until the day that I'm like, you know what? I don't want to, because I never ever have not wanted to go on stage. I always want to go on stage. We're talking over 1,000 shows. And I think maybe there will come a time where I'm like, you know what? I don't want to do this, and I'll know. But until that point, I think, why not just go 100 miles an hour, play for anyone who wants me to play. But I also think now more than ever, I take better care of my body. And I know that sounds probably cliche and cheesy, but working out and eating healthier, all of that, when you are doing a grueling road schedule, it is so important to take care of yourself. And I tell everyone that. I'm like, man, I know that Whataburger is easier and sounds really good, but if you can make the effort to give yourself a moment in the mornings, maybe a tiny bit of meditation or yoga or something, and then work out and try to eat healthy, it goes a long way.
You can prevent exhaustion by loving what you do, as long as you take care of yourself and take breaks. But how do you fight stage fright when you reach a new level? Because, you've been doing this since, you mentioned being 3 and playing in front of people, but you were on TV with Travis Tritt. How do you not freak out when you do that? Yeah,
well, I've done a few TV shows, enough to know that I do freak out, because I think the scariest thing was I don't get stage fright anymore at shows. Just, even if they're kind of big, I might feel a little whatever, but it's not anything significant. And then the first time I did a big TV show, I looked down and my hands were shaking. And I immediately freaked out. I was doing the blind auditions for The Voice and made it all the way to, the chairs. And I looked down and my hands were shaking. And that sent a full body nervous reaction, because I don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
So I freaked out, and it showed in my voice. I couldn't really control it. I lost my breath. All of those things that you remember from when you were scared 10 years ago that don't happen to me anymore. They happened, and they happened again on CMT's Next Superstar. I was on that TV show, and they happened again on the Real Country. It's Tracy Bird. You're talking about dropping names.
I need to do like Bad Truth where they have like the bell they ring whenever there's like a name drop.
Right. Ding. Tracy Bird said, hey, but you know what? After all of these years, sometimes you have to ride that high because there's thrill in it. Like you forget what it's like to be nervous. And so I try to view it more as like, okay, this is something I don't get. It's a rush. It doesn't have to be terrifying. It can be, but I'm not going to lie, wine or whiskey helps a little bit. And for me, it's just like something to calm me down. And I hate that. I'm not talking about too much, but just enough, just a little bit. Just
a little.
Yeah. So Mom, she's right here. She's going to glare at me, but I had her sneak me back a little bit of wine before the USA show. Just to calm me down.
Sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
Right. Nerves make you feel human, I think. But when you're a singer, I know you go through this, it affects your vocal cords in ways that you can't control. And that's very frustrating.
Yeah. Well, and it's, you mentioned your family being supportive, and it also seems like a lot of the people you keep around you seem to be really supportive. And I say that just from not just reading social media posts, because you do show a lot of gratitude to your folks, but just having met a few of them, whether it's with your band or playing somewhere else, there's the whole family tree of Texas music. But I think one of the coolest live moments I've ever seen at a show is when my wife and I were at Redneck Country Club in Stafford, and you played Amazing Grace at the end, and everybody came out and hugged you from your band.
Oh.
And I mean, that got the whole crowd. I mean, I think everybody felt that moment, and that was so cool. But I think usually just no matter what the lineup is with your band, you can always just kind of see it. Like, how do you manage to maintain kind of that family atmosphere?
I've been so blessed. I mean, I've had nothing but really great band members throughout the years, and we do become like family. And, if I take someone out for a couple weeks, if it doesn't have that feeling, then I automatically just move on, because when you're spending so much time on the road, it's like maybe in the beginning, I didn't have the best players. I didn't have the top of the line band, but I had guys that respected me, treated me well, would take a bullet for me, I would take a bullet for them. And that, I think, is how I got through those hard years of being on the road so much, is because I had that support system. And I think the show that you're talking about was my tour manager, Jose. I think it was his last day with us before he went to Stony the Brew.
Oh, wow.
And so he came, that's why everyone came out on stage. Because we were giving him a send-off, so it was extra special for us. He was with me for 4.5 years. And he got picked up by Stony, which, of course, I'm never mad about. If you have an offer from somebody like that, like, you take it and you run and you... and yeah, so we had a moment. And I hope that people see that, and they don't think that, we do that every night and we plan it or we stage it. Like, those moments are organic. And so I'm glad that you brought that up, because now I'm like tearing up just thinking about it. Because
well, I can tell you, as somebody that was in the crowd, you could just tell it was not staged. Plus, at Redneck Country Club, they have people play Amazing Grace sometimes. And so it all just kind of happened. But I mean, it was really cool to be there and see that. And that was, right after the album came out and everything. So, I mean, it was just really cool. But I think the funniest thing that happened that night, though, and I forgot about this till just now, y'all were playing Superstition, and there was an Astros game on TV, and Astros were getting their butts kicked or whatever. Well, they started to make a comeback, and the crowd started cheering, and then y'all fed off of, y'all like started rocking out more, and there was this back and forth, like the Astros made a comeback while y'all were playing it, and I don't know what point everyone realized, it's like, oh, they're grinning at us and we're cheering, but we're cheering for, it was like a whole back and forth on where the energy was coming from.
Right. And I think that was the night that someone told me, I can't remember who it was, but I've heard for years from many of the big artists that they will not go on stage until all the TVs are off.
Oh, yeah.
And I have always been like, no, I don't like to cause wait. Like, people are at the bar. I don't want them to get mad and leave. And I think it was that night where I was like, all right, no more TV.
Yeah. Well, from the vibe I caught, like, I'm a diehard Astros fan, but I wasn't even watching the game. Like, I don't think anybody looked at the game until the comeback started. It's like, oh, cool. They're doing that.
That's so funny. Well, and it's like, that is always so hard because you want people to be at the bar and having a good time. But like I said before, I think there's magic to, like, this is our 90-minute show. We're not here for 4 hours. Like, we're here. We're going to give you 110%, and you give us 110%. And if you're not into that, no big deal. Like, you can go watch the game somewhere else, and I don't get offended by that. But when there's too much going on, I think people take music for granted. I think it's so much better to just make it a concert and make it what it should be.
I mean, I may be an Aggie, but I hate playing during A&M games because it's like nobody's listening to me except for when they played LSU. I won the crowd over in probably 5 minutes into that game because we sucked that night. The music was better than the game.
Right.
Before I play the next song, I have to ask about one member of your organization, and it's the one you found on the side of the road, who I think I heard barking a minute ago. I have never heard you tell the whiskey story.
Well, I know. I will tell you that is my mom's dog, and that was not my dog misbehaving while I'm on a podcast. She knows better.
So whiskey's well trained then.
Yes. Well, she's just really sleepy. So I'm a big universe person. I, do gratitude for things that I want, and somehow I pretty much get it. And I've always wanted a dog, but I promised my mom I wouldn't get a dog. And I said, unless I find a dog, then I will have to keep it. And so everyone in the band, everyone was tired that day. I said, well, I'll drive. And I said, this is the perfect place to look for stray dogs. And I turned the corner, and there is a dog, a little chihuahua in the middle of the road. And I slam on the brakes, pull the van over, jump out, and chase this dog for like a mile before she stops. And then once I pick her up, she is like attached to me. She was skinny. She was cold. She had fleas. She smelled terrible. So I did kind of halfway try to find if she had an owner, but she had no chip, no collar. And then she's been my road dog ever since. She goes everywhere. She gets on stage. She had heartworms at the time, and she had a lot of problems, but they're all pretty much fixed now. We just got her fixed. The heartworms are gone, and she's way more famous than me. Every time I go play a show, everyone's like, "Where's your dog? Where's your dog? Where's your dog?"
That's so funny because when I scheduled the 2 interviews I'm doing this week, this didn't even cross my mind. But on Friday, I'm interviewing the guy who did the Barf Crow account last summer.
I saw that. You're interviewing Hunter.
Yeah. And I started laughing just earlier because I thought about, he posted a video. It was like what Bri Bagwell's dog goes through or something. It was like the South Park video. I was like, I forgot about that.
Yeah. I saw Hunter on the cruise, and it's so funny because I love Hunter. He's awesome. We never even talked about that, and I thought it was funny too. Yeah. He is great. I can't wait for that interview because no one knew who he was for so long, and we were all guessing who it was.
People thought it was me. I'm like, no, like, I don't have enough job security.
Yeah, but all the ones that he posted of me, I thought like he could have been way more mean. So I love him for that. He's sweet. Yeah. But my poor dog, she does. I put her on stage and I put her in clothes and she has a cowboy hat. She might really hate it, but she acts like she loves me a lot. So.
All right. Well, I'm going to play another song here. This one's called Feel Like Home.
Is greener. You're off and on like a Tennessee firefly. No one's gonna catch you, no one's gonna be your keeper. Before you get tied down, you say goodbye. Water ain't happy when it's sitting in a hole in the river. You can't be still 'cause your wheels were made to roll. But you never loved a woman long enough to miss her, and you blame it on your gypsy soul. Don't you ever wonder where your road's gonna end? And do you ever get tired of being all alone? And if you don't slow down, you'll never know if a house could ever feel like home. Pack it up, move along faster than a traveling circus. You think settling down means dragging round a ball and chain. I bet you never stayed in one place long enough to know it's worth it. Well, I bet that's something I could change. And don't you wanna love her? Don't you need a friend? Oh, and don't you ever wonder where your road's gonna end? And do you ever get tired of being all alone? If you don't slow down, you'll never know if a house could ever feel like home. It's more than shutters, nails, and boards and pictures on a shelf that makes a house a home sweet home. Have you ever asked yourself, don't you wanna love her? Don't you need a friend? Don't you ever wonder where your road's gonna end? Do you ever get tired of being all alone? If you don't slow down, you'll never know if a house could ever feel like home. 'Cause if you don't slow down, you'll never know if a house could ever feel like home. Don't you wanna love her? Oh baby, I could be a lover. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh baby, it could feel like home. It could feel like home.
All right, so tell me about that song. I can't talk. I'm just gonna let you talk.
I love it. No worries. I'm in the same boat. Well, I love people when people ask, say, look, I can't talk either. You gave it to me.
It's contagious.
Yeah, I love talking about that song because, you know, when your records come out, you get all of these people that review your album, whether you ask them to or not.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times they do like these really harsh reviews because it gives them like attention. And this one blogger went on and just was like, all of the songs on this record make sense except one. It just stands out. It doesn't sound like Bri at all. And you know, she could take on a completely different character, and I just laughed and laughed, and he was really harsh about that song because I wrote that song about me. It sounds like I'm singing about a boy, obviously, but I wrote it about myself, which I think is part of art. Like, people don't have to know that. You can just like the song for what it is. But when you do know that and you go back and listen to it, you're like, oh, you know, it's like, always want to be where you think the grass is greener. You're a gypsy. Can you stay put for a minute? I've moved 13 times in 12 years.
Wow.
So it's like that, you know, that blogger that was so hating and saying it wasn't me did not think of that song from the right perspective.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. It's sometimes funny how somebody will just nitpick a song to death that's like, okay, well, that's actually the most heartfelt one. Or somebody on the flip side will demand, hey, you should play that song again. It's like, either it's one you didn't write, or it's like, I don't even like that song anymore. Like, why are you asking for it?
Yeah. And Feel Like Home is probably my favorite song on the record, but it's nobody else's favorite. I mean, very few people have been like, oh, that's my favorite, but it's my favorite. You know, that's just how it goes.
So would you say that song means the most to you of all your songs, or it's just on up there?
That one is great. And I ended up moving, this is crazy TMI, but like, I guess like 3.5 times in the last 6 months.
Wow.
And I know. And moving once will kill you. Moving 3.5 times, I was like losing my mind. Like I couldn't find anything. It was just the circumstances, and it was just crazy story after crazy story. And so I would sing that song, and I would like look at my tour manager like couldn't catch my breath because I was about to cry. Because like I really just want a home, like so badly. And I ended up getting it. I just moved to New Braunfels, and I found like I didn't buy a house, which is what I wanted, but the circumstances, you know, I was saving to buy a house. That's why I was kind of gypsying around. But I'm renting, but I live in New Braunfels, and I absolutely love it, and it feels like home to me. And so when I kind of moved in there, like every time I sing that song, I almost break down. So yeah, probably the most right now.
I think New Braunfels and that area is the one topic that I have not written into any interview, and I think it's come up on every single episode. I mean, there's something about that area and Greenhall and all that you know, people are just drawn to it. Like it's come up one way or another.
Right. And I think a lot of people don't realize a lot of Texas country people live there. Mm-hmm. And I was in Austin for a long time. I've been in Austin for a long time. I was in Nashville, College Station, then back in Austin, and then in Buda. And Austin is the best. I love Austin so much, but it's so expensive.
Crazy expensive.
So New Braunfels still feels like you're in the country, but you're, you know, close. I don't want to spill the secret because I don't want it to get so crazy that I can't buy a house in the next year. So nobody moved there for a while.
Hey, we heard on the podcast that's where everyone should move. Let's go.
No, don't do it. I mean, do it. It's really great.
It makes me nervous every now and then. Like we moved back. So I did my undergrad at UMHB up in Belton, Texas, before I went to A&M for grad school. And my wife and I moved to Temple a year ago this past month. And we love it. You know, we get that small town feel and everything, but we're noticing how much it's grown in just like the past 5 years. It's like, man, I hope it doesn't really just boom over the next 10. Like I love how small it is, but still accessible to everything. And an hour from Austin, 2 hours from Fort Worth. I mean, it's perfect, but it's like you said, it's like, let's not let the secret out to the rest of Texas.
Right. I love that area too. Like we, you know, when we drive through there, because we drive through there all the time, it's really nice. Like not as much traffic, and you can get your post office or your grocery store or whatever. I don't know. But I almost built a tiny house out in Johnson City. I was really, really close to doing that. But then I realized I had too much stuff.
Just build several small houses and just kind of like divide it between the several.
Yeah, when you have 7 guitars, you can't live in a tiny house. Like that's not enough, and 2 pianos. You can't do that.
I was like, 7 guitars made me think of 7 Spanish Angels, which took me to another question I was going to ask is, you know, you have a few cover songs you play quite often, and I think fans kind of are drawn to those. And 7 Spanish Angels is definitely one of those. Like, I've seen you play it live, and I've seen how people kind of get excited for it. And I think it was the live stream you did with, I think it was Bonnie Bishop a couple weeks ago, where in the comments there were just a bunch of people requesting it, and I'm like, that's not even her song, but people want to hear it. You know, what is it? Do you think that really resonates with people?
Oh wow, I think it could be because it's my favorite song to sing, and maybe there's just like these, you know, universe waves that go out to everybody that they're like, it's something about the way I sing it because I love it so much. Or maybe it's just because it's the best song in the whole world. Maybe it's because every time I sing it, somebody else comes up and sings it with me, like Bo Brumble or David Grace, or we did my live stream yesterday. My brother sang it with me. So if anyone wants to go on Instagram or Facebook and check that out, my 2 brothers sing that song with me. It's just something magical about that song, and it's my favorite song to sing. And everyone knows that, and they kind of never know who's going to get up and sing with me. It's always someone different. So, but I love that people love it because it is one of the greatest songs.
Well, you are really good at collaborating with people, and that actually kind of brings me to the Set 'em Up Joes, which, yeah, I looked at that before I saw who was in it. I'm like, another country? Like, how many Texas bands are popping up this year? And I saw who was in it. I'm like, oh, this is legit. Because the first time I saw you, you know, at that spring show, you and Jody Booth were actually playing together at that show, and that was 2017. So how did y'all Set 'em Up Joes together?
Yeah, well, Jody Booth and I have been playing private shows together for like 10 years. People, they want, corporate parties or whatever, they want a guy and a girl and they want them to play cover songs or old country songs or whatever. So they'll hire me and Jody and kind of work that out. And I mean, for years we've been playing these shows where if they want only 90s country, we can do that. If they want only Merle Haggard, we can do that. And so we kind of always joked about starting a band. And then we got our first offer last year. They said, we want Bri and Jody back again for the third year in a row, but we want them full band. And we said, oh, well, and then we looked at each other and we're like, all right, you know what? We've been doing this for so long. Let's just start a freaking band. And we did. We started Set 'em Up Joes. And so we started off with 90s country. Then we did 90s and 80s country. And now we're 90s country, 80s country, 70s country. And if you want some before that, we can do that too. And it's so much fun. We have the most incredible 7-piece band. We have steel guitar, we have fiddle, and there's no pressure. We mostly do it on weekdays. So if Chevron wants to hire us for their private party on a Tuesday, we just did that. And we just play, I don't know, how there's so much pressure as an independent artist. You put so much pressure on yourself. And if you have a bad weekend where no one shows up or you don't sell tickets, you take it really hard. This for me is that project that I play it and I come away from it I have the best time. It's like singing karaoke all night. It's I play Shania and Dixie Chicks and Merle Haggard and Keith Whitley and Vince Gill and everyone's singing every word, and it's so fun. And we don't try to book shows. If people want to book us, they book us, and we get a few a month without trying because the word has gotten out, and it's just a nice break for both of us.
That's awesome. It's always good to kind of not to add too many projects, but to always have something to the side to just kind of blow off steam from your main projects, for sure. Yeah.
And early on, I probably would have been I'm never playing in a cover band, you know? And 10 years later, I'm this is so much fun. And I mean, not that this is what you asked, but you know how it is. Sometimes you make more money doing cover stuff than original stuff.
Oh, it's true. Yeah. It's here's a song I poured my heart and soul into. It's golf clap. And it's all right, here's Wagon Wheel. Yay. It's okay.
100%. And I think 90s country was our favorite era. A lot of us, that's how we fell in love with music. So we're getting to play songs that we fell in love with. So it's really great.
Oh, as soon as I get to play on an actual stage again, I mean, a Joe Diffie cover has to happen. I mean, I know everyone's going to be doing that, but it has to happen at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yep, we're going to do one. We're all going to do it. And that's okay, because it's good.
Yeah. I mean, the man deserves it. The man deserves to look down and hear that. Well, speaking of pouring heart into songs, and I was going to limit how many songs I toot the horn for, but Empty Chairs, you kind of mentioned a second ago how you can sell out one night and the next night it's oh, where's everybody at? It's that song. As a songwriter, that song I think hit harder than any other song that year, because I was man, that hit the struggle nail on the head. How long did it take you to write that? Because that is definitely a true song.
Oh, I'm so glad. Well, every time I get a comment about that song, it's from a musician. Yeah. And then
we know the struggle.
Right. And then I don't know, 2 weeks ago, my friend has a restaurant. And she said, oh my gosh, seeing all the empty chairs and your song came on and I just broke down. And I was man, I never related it to a restaurant, but I guess it can span beyond a musician song, which is hard to put on the record because you're should I put this on? No one's going to get this unless but I'm glad I did, because all of my musician friends, like you said, they're thank you for writing that song, or that hit me really hard. I rewrote that song so many times until my producer, she's this could be great. But it's not there. And I rewrote it. And I think actually a couple lines in there are Brian Keane and Rachel. They rearranged them or helped make them what they are. So they wouldn't let me put that song on the record until it was the song that it is now. So they get a lot of credit for that.
Well, credit to all y'all, because it turned out perfect.
Thank you.
So you put out a couple of music videos, not too far apart from each other. You had the If You Were a Cowboy and Cheat on Me. And both songs are great, but I started laughing because I don't know if you know Rita from Coke FM down in Austin, but she had she had some tweet that was a Mount Rushmore of people, and I don't remember the exact tweet, so I'm probably misquoting this, but basically it was mishaps, and I wanted so bad to be like the guy with the man bun getting rejected in Bri's music video. It was so funny. That video was good because it's another one, as you could tell, it was real. And I think you've mentioned before that was the one song that wasn't like, you didn't write that song on the album or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Rachel, Loy, and 2 other girls wrote that song. And you know how a lot of times people are like, you need to record my song. You need to record. I wrote this song to be perfect for you. And you hear it and you're like, that's not at all perfect for me. But Rachel was like, I have a song. If you like it, no pressure. I don't know if you're going to like it. And she played me If You Were a Cowboy. And I said, give me that song. That is my song. I love it so much. And I just felt like that song was written for me. I don't know why.
You owned it. I mean, it sounded like the rest of the album, and the video was perfect.
Thank you so much. Well, we did that video. I think that was right before I left for the TV show, I think. And we had 2 days, and I was in New Mexico, and then I flew back to Texas, and then the next day I flew to Nashville or something crazy. So we had like less than 48 hours. And so I called AJ. So I had someone in Las Cruces get a drone and film me doing all the horse stuff at my cousin's farm in New Mexico. And then I flew to Austin the next day. We went to Saxon Pub and filmed those shots with AJ at Saxon Pub. And then the next day I flew to Nashville. So, I mean, overall, I maybe spent like 6 hours in front of the camera. It was not planned. I had no budget. I had no time. I had no hair and makeup. It was just like, go, go, go. My cousin did my hair. I mean, it was crazy. And then it turned out really great.
Yeah, it definitely did.
For what it is. For budget and timing, I'm like blown away what AJ can do with no budget.
Oh, yeah. Those 2 videos did not look alike. Like, Cheat on Me was real artistic. Like, tell me how y'all kind of came up with that, too.
Yeah, I had this thought of, I want to be like a loungy singer, and I want it, like you just said, I was like, I want it to look different from anything I've ever done. I want to be singing. I have this vision of a red microphone, and I just want to be, and like I'm singing to this guy, and I want him to be hot, but I want to be like, I wish you would cheat on me. And I want to be singing to him, and I want all these beautiful girls, pulling him away from me, but he's still looking at me. And AJ, every time I wait for AJ to tell me like, you are crazy, this is not going to work. And he's always like, let's do it. And, my other video, I Can't Be Lonely, I told him I wanted to be a newscaster with a green screen, and we did that one too.
That was hilarious.
I mean, he never tells me no. So with that one, that dress was like $70 from Macy's, and that microphone was like $30 on Amazon. And then it was all my friends in the video, and we rented a room from on St. Elmo Music Lab. Rented a rehearsal room for like $70 for the day, and had one camera in there and 5 hours, and we did that video. So wow. I think with people that see stuff like that, they're like, oh, she probably has a lot of money or a big, it's like, no, you just have to be really creative.
Yeah. That's the name of the game sometimes with music videos.
And that wasn't like a brag, like I think I'm really creative. I just mean like you have to be creative with how far you can stretch a dollar. Like you can stretch it a lot further than you think you can.
You really do. And that song, did it make number 1? Or I know it was definitely on the charts, but I'm trying to remember how high it got.
Yeah, it went to number 1, and I think it went faster than any of my other songs by a lot. Yeah, I wrote that with Courtney Patton, by the way, and she's great. And yeah, it hit number 1, and it hit number 1 so fast that the video came out when that song was on its way down.
Wow.
We weren't prepared. We didn't know it was going to go that way.
And for anyone listening to this that hasn't heard, I think so. The story you've told in other interviews is pretty funny about how like you kind of pitched it to Courtney, right? And she's like, "You're terrible, but let's write it."
Yeah, I was like, "Does this make me a bad person?" She was like, "Yes, but I'm going to help you finish it." She was obviously being funny because she's Courtney, but we sat down and we didn't really know each other that well at the time. It was a while back, and we wrote that and. Courtney came out with, then I'd say if I never saw you. And I'm like, okay, because I already had the verses, but I had no chorus. And or 1 or 2 verses, not all of them. And she came out with that, the first line of that chorus. I was like, okay, you're the person for this song.
That's awesome. Well, I'm going to play that here for everybody. This is called Cheat on Me.
could catch you in a lie. I wish you would call me up and let me down and listen to me cry. I wish you would break my heart. I wish you could look me in the eye and tell me there's another woman and just tell me goodbye. Then I'd say if I never saw you again, it would be too soon. Then I could make you feel real bad, 'cause my mama thought you hung the moon. Then I could tell everyone just what you've done, and we'd be history. I wish you would cheat on me. I wish this could be enough. I wish I could sleep at night. I wish I didn't hate myself, 'cause when I lie it just don't feel right. I wish there was a tight red dress. I wish there was whiskey and wine. I wish you'd get down on your knees begging, baby, please, it was just one time. Then I'd say if I never saw you again, it would be too soon. Then I could make you feel real bad, 'cause my mama thought you had the moon. Then I could tell everyone just what you've done, and we'd be history. I wish you would cheat on me. You never done me wrong, and you never will. Oh, but if I broke all of the rules, you would love me still. Don't make me say if I never saw you again, it would be too soon. I know you're gonna feel like hell, and your mama thought I hung the moon. I know that I should turn and run, 'cause you're not the one, but you deserve to be. I don't want you to hate me. Don't make me do this, baby. I wish you would cheat on me. I wish you would cheat on me.
So there's been a lot of discussion over how female artists are unfairly excluded from music festivals and headliner spots. And if you could give shout outs to other female artists that you would love to see on a stage, like if you were designing a music festival basically for a year from now and you want to just line up the roster, I mean, who are some of the names you would throw out there?
Oh yeah, because you sent me this. Like you asked me this a while ago, and I was gonna think more on it because there are so many, and I don't want to leave anyone out. But
like you'll name 50, and then you'll like an hour after the interview be like, "Oh, I should have mentioned these two."
I should have said this. I'm a big Jade Pautek fan, Year Bri Bagwell.
She might actually be on here soon. Fun
fact. Oh, good.
Yeah.
She's incredible.
Well, I had to get you to say Pautek because I've butchered the name so many times. I'm like, I can't get a confirmation on that.
It's Pautek. And of course my girl Sarah Hobbs. I think she's so fun.
Oh, yeah.
She's so funny and so great. And then I've recently become acquainted with Kayla Ray.
Oh yeah, I think I've been following her kind of recently actually.
Yeah, she's amazing. And well, I mean, she's not up and coming, but I'm the biggest Kimberly Dunn fan. That girl, I saw her in Steamboat again. I always make it a point to go to her shows, but this Kimberly Dunn, you know, people see like jumping and up and down, and she's the most energy. I mean, she puts on the best show.
I tweeted her and I said, if I ever start a rock band, you're fronting the band.
100%. But I saw her sing a ballad in Steamboat that made me bawl. I mean, that girl is so talented, and her writing, she's really great. So Kim for sure. Gosh, there's so many.
I know.
And there's a bunch of new ones coming up too. Kenna Danielle, she's not new anymore. She's an incredible writer. Morgan Rutherford, she's incredible. Okay, I can go on.
Yeah.
That's enough for y'all to research for now.
That could be like a whole other 2-hour episode. It's like female artists that should be on the lineup.
There's so many, but there, and I understand, like with festivals, there's not that many girls traveling around with a band, so it's not that we expect 50-50 representation. Like that's not what we mean, but definitely. Sometimes it's frustrating when there's a 3-day festival and not a single female, but I think everyone's getting way better at it. I mean, it seems like it from 10 years ago when I started, it's way better. So we're going in the right direction.
Well, I was kind of that way one time. Like when I was listening to country and mainstream country before the mid 2000s, before Texas country was still really building its name. And like for me personally, I would hear the mainstream artists and I'd hear 5 songs in a row that weren't bad, but it was all about ex-boyfriends burning their house, whatever. The more I kind of like branched out and listened to more, as we say, up and coming artists, I'm like, oh, wait, there's a lot of good stuff out there. We're just not getting exposed to the artists we should be following. I'm glad to see that more artists are getting their due. The first time I ever saw you perform was when you opened for Cody Johnson at Wolfpen Creek. And
oh my gosh, yeah.
That was like a long time ago. My wife and I are sitting there, and about 3 songs into your set, we kind of looked at each other, and my wife and I are kind of like, she's really good. It's like there's a Miranda Lambert vibe, but there's diversity in the content. And that's not a diss on Miranda. It's just like, this is something new. This is something we should be listening to.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, that makes me happy that you say that because, like, obviously she's like one of my biggest influences in the whole world, and I love her and her family. I wouldn't be anywhere where I am today without Miranda's family and Lindale helping me. And I mean, I can't, like, there's not enough time to tell you what they've done for me and still do for me. Miranda's mom sent me a bunch of wine, like a whole box of wine as a care package. Nice. For quarantine. But it took me a long time because I saw Miranda and I was like, I want to be that. I didn't know that you could do that as a female artist. So I'm glad that you said that because there is a lot of her influence in me because I love her so much, but it took me a long time to find out how I can be influenced by her without trying to be her. Because when I first started, I was like, I want to be her so bad that I was just a bad version of her. Like no one can be Miranda. Miranda is Miranda. I have to be Bri. And that's like, that's such a journey as an artist when you're like, okay, well, what do I want to say? And so I'm glad when you say that you can like hear the influence because it is an influence. You are a product of your influences. Yeah. And she's my biggest one. Well,
like I said earlier, there'd be I need like a bell to ring for name dropping, but I think at this point I'd probably break the bell, especially with this question. Who are some of your sponsors and partners we should look into? Because you do a lot of really good business with advertising other brands and there's so many of them I've seen you advertise with. I'm kind of like, I don't even know how many there are.
Yeah, I keep my like official sponsorships or partnerships very small because like I do a lot of shout outs for people that do great things, but I keep my family like real small because I firmly believe in like building a brand together. So Rebecca Creek Whiskey is the first one that I started working with 8 years ago, and nobody really knew them. Nobody really knew me. We've kind of grown together over the last 8 years. And so they're the biggest one. Man, they support Texas music. Like they do so much for me. I can't even tell y'all. Plus they make a great product. So Carbach Beer, we just started working with Carbach and We're working with Love Street this year. So we're about to do some really, really cool things with Love Street, and I am so excited. They're amazing people too. Like we go to the brewery and walk around and taste the beers, and they're just great people. And then Texas Silver Rush Jewelry out of Fredericksburg. I do a lot of things with them. I wear a lot of turquoise. They make a lot of turquoise. So that was like kind of a natural partnership. And then I've been wearing Anderson Bean boots since I started. They came to my very first show at the Tap. It was my third full band show ever, I think. And they came and brought me a pair of Anderson Bean boots. And then we just, we kind of have had this like handshake deal ever since. It's not necessarily that they pay me a lot of money. I just love their boots. And we've worked together they brought me my first pair of red boots, which is kind of my thing. Nice. So we've been working together since, that was 2011.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
That was a lot of information. I'm sorry, guys, but those are my people.
No, it's perfect. You gotta like speed read it down. Be like, this program was brought to you by. Just like read down the list.
Yeah, and we're steering away from being like sponsors, you know, to being like partners, because that's what they are, and it's not like, I don't want to be commercial about it. I want it to be organic, and like the Rebecca Creek distillery changed their whole distillery and delivered thousands and thousands of gallons of hand sanitizer that they made in the distillery during quarantine. I mean, I don't have to like tell people how great. I mean, that's just, they are those people.
Yeah.
So great.
So when can we expect Bri Bagwell hand sanitizer? Because I think that would sell pretty quickly right now.
Oh my gosh. You just gave me the best idea. We're going to call it band sanitizer instead of hand sanitizer. And it's going to be like rock and roll label.
That is
I'm
perfect.
going to do that. Thank you. I'll split the profits with you.
Again, you heard it here first, folks.
We've killed it tonight.
The last show I saw of yours in Houston before we moved up to Temple was you played, I forgot the name of the place. It was up in the Heights. It's like a really, really small dance hall. But there was like 2 different tables, maybe 3 tables, where there's a bottle of Rebecca Creek sitting there. And because I think some of your group had been sitting there, but they were kind of like all over the place that night. And I looked around, I was like, are we supposed to drink this stuff, or is the rope going to catch our ankles? You know, it's like a trap if we come drink it. Like, there's Rebecca Creek all over this bar.
Yeah, I mean...
I think it was like Daisy Dukes or something.
Oh, that's right. I remember that.
For the listeners, it was amazing because my album had just come out, and I went in there and I was going to buy Bri's album. And what I didn't know is it had gone to digital pre-order only. And I pull up with a couple of dudes. I'm like, hey, I've got a bunch of my albums in the glove compartment. Y'all reach in and grab one. I'll just give her mine when I buy hers. And I walk in, and your album wasn't for sale yet, but I gave you mine. I told the other guys, I was like, dude, I look like the guy that just like listened to my mixtape, Bri Bagwell.
Oh, that's so funny. I didn't take it like that at all. That's so funny. But I remember what show you were talking about. And then they're really good about like whenever I have a show, if they have promo girls in the area, they'll like send out their team of girls. So people are like, they'll post on Facebook, be careful when you go to a Bri show. Like, you don't need to pregame because the chances are you're going to get a lot of free whiskey from beautiful women, or she's going to, you know, sometimes people send up shots to the stage, and I can't drink too much when I sing. It's not good. I've seen it on YouTube from the early days. And so I'll be like, here, you want this Rebecca Creek? You come take it. You never know.
But I can't turn it down and be rude, so tally ho.
Oh, exactly. The catch-22. You take it, you're too drunk. You don't take it, you're a jerk. I hate that.
Well, speaking of venues and like having a good time at shows, what are some of your favorite venues in towns to go through?
Oh my gosh. I of course love Green Hall. I love Saxon Pub in Austin. You were talking about that one. I love Redneck Country Club. I don't know what's going on down there right now. Do-Si-Do in the Woodlands is one of my favorite places in the whole world to play. Up in Fort Worth, we used to, gosh, there's so many now. I don't even know what to say. I love, the Blue Light in Lubbock is so much fun. I've never had a bad time there.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
If you can do well at the Blue Light, you do well everywhere. I mean, it's kind of like a testing ground too.
Right. The Love and Wars are so much fun. We've done all the casino gigs, which I thought I would hate, and I ended up really loving all the casino gigs we do in Oklahoma and Louisiana. Trying to think. I love playing in my hometown in Las Cruces. Anywhere they'll have me. Gosh, I named like too many.
Well, for anyone who this is the first episode you're listening to, almost every single artist lists Green Hall first or second, and it's like, oh wait, but also, and there's like 10 more. It's a pattern.
Right. I actually love, like, I didn't even say anywhere in Corpus. Like, I love playing in Corpus and Puerto Riensis. I will play there anytime. San Antonio County Line is really fun. I mean, I don't know. I guess it's so weird because venues can be so great, but then the people also make them great. you know, like Green Hall, there's no real backstage and no air conditioning, and we all named that first. That's what shows you how magical a venue can be.
Definitely a legacy. And you mentioned Port A. It's like, I think you and I were two of the last bands that got to play at Billy Joe's down there. That was because year before last. And so they're not there anymore, but they do still have Back Porch and some good places like that.
Yeah,
it's definitely a great spot.
Third Coast Theater in Port Aransas is amazing. If you're into listening rooms, check that out. Port A is full of party bars. That one, if you just want to go listen, is really good. I could go on and on and on, like we said.
So if people want to follow you, your music, your shows, catch these live streams you're doing, is it just at Bri Bagwell on all your platforms?
Yeah, it's BRI. My mom would like you to know that she named me Brianna, but I chose to go by Bri, so it's just BRI. Bagwell on, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, Facebook. People keep trying to tell me to do TikTok. I'm like, I don't have time for one more thing.
Oh gosh, I know. I made one and then never looked at it. Like, I need to go see if I even have followers.
I know. I know.
It's too much.
There's only so many hours in the day. I only have so many thumbs,
Yeah. I think anything I've put on TikTok is just a copy from YouTube or Instagram. Like, I don't think I've ever filmed a TikTok ever.
Yeah,
I'm also like 15 years too old for that anyway, but it's hard. It's one of those, you have to have it, but why?
Right. And here we are adding another thing to our to-do list. That's the theme of this podcast.
It is. I didn't even I was never going to do a podcast. I've had 3 different people ask me, hey, let's do a podcast together. I'm like, dude, I don't have time. So we were doing a live stream a couple weeks ago, and AJ Gale was like, you should really do a podcast. I'm like, fine.
Yeah, you're very good at it. I will say
it.
I've done a lot, and I've had some good ones. I've had some bad ones, and you're effortless. You make it way too easy.
Well, the big 3 questions I ask everyone to close the podcast out. The first one, if you could collaborate with anyone out there, who would it be?
Vince Gill.
Nice.
For sure.
Well, he collaborates with everybody, so that might actually happen.
That might work.
So this is full confession hour here. I stole that question from a podcast, The Sports Guys with Brandon Morrell. I was on that one probably it was a few months ago. And when he asked me that question, I was like, dude, that's a really good question. And my answer, no lie, was I want to write a whiskey drinking song with Kevin Fowler and Bri Bagwell. That was my answer.
Oh my, well, that's easy. So, we can make that happen.
Whiskey and Jesus. You heard it here first.
Absolutely. We'll text Kevin and be like, here, just put a line in here.
There we go.
Do it.
Well, if you could headline any venue out there, where would you go?
Oh, I mean, I don't know if you count it as headlining, but I've always wanted to play the Opry.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was Green Hall, but I did get to do that. I got to headline there. So moving on to the Opry.
That'd be awesome. Everyone mentions Green Hall, and I get a little salty every time because I haven't actually gotten to see a show there yet. I've been to the place. I just haven't got to go watch a show.
Yeah. Well, you will have plenty of opportunities.
Oh, I'm sure. I was going to go see Cross Rags and Young on April 24th, but now that that's canceled, I was like, man, because, originally I was like, yeah, I'm going to go see Grady and Randy and watch them play. And then someone texted me and said, dude, you realize Cody Canada lives there. If there was ever a time where they bury the hatchet and just get on stage, that's probably it. And I'm like, well, now I have to go.
That's totally true.
Thanks, Corona.
Yeah, and I meant you'll have plenty of opportunities because, I live there now, and I didn't realize that they have shows on the weekdays. So even if you're busy on the weekends, they have shows all week.
Oh, for sure.
And on Sundays. And so, and I live about 5 minutes from there, so you and your wife, you guys can come crash at my place.
Dude, totally. Whenever
open invitation.
2021 or whenever they lift this quarantine up.
Yeah. When we have money for gas and beer again.
There you go. Priorities.
Right.
So, the big finale question, what is the funniest or craziest story you can tell from your music career so far?
Oh my gosh. I always tell the same one. I told it yesterday, but my mom was like, why don't you tell that other story? I said, well, I don't know. You think that one's funnier? And she was like, totally. And I was like, okay. Because I always tell the story about how I had a single axle trailer, which don't do that, obviously, but I had that. And the tire flew off and passed us on the highway, which could have, been really bad, but it didn't hit anyone. And yeah. But I had another story where we were we broke down on the way, but it was between Colorado and Texas. Maybe we were in like northern New Mexico, border of Colorado. I can't remember exactly where, but we really didn't have much cell phone service. We had to walk for a long time until we did. And we called AAA and we were broken down, but we have a van and a trailer, and they sent a tow truck, and they said, well, how many people are there? Because we can only put one person in the tow truck. And I said, oh, there's just one. So we went back, and my whole band had to lay down in the van on the floor and hide so I could get in the tow truck with the driver. And then they all hid in the van for like, we got towed like 2 hours to the nearest town, and they had to all hide in the van on the tow truck. Isn't that terrible?
That's amazing. Did the tow truck guy ever see him when y'all got there?
No, they didn't. Because they wouldn't have done it. It's a liability, and that's probably why I didn't tell that story, because it was probably very illegal. But man, we were in the middle of nowhere. We didn't really have a choice.
Yeah.
So they all had to hide.
Well, we won't tell everybody when that was. That way, maybe.
Yeah.
We won't say which of the times y'all broke down and had to get towed.
Yeah, and I apologize for any laws we might have broken. Please don't come after me. I'm very much a rule follower. I pray a lot. Like this, that was not my fault.
Oh, I'm like, I always think I'm a rule follower, and then I'll have somebody on the podcast, and I'll say, what's the craziest thing you ever did in your music career? And they'll be like, hey, you remember the time where you, me, and then we're down? I'm like, oh, no.
And now we've done it. Yeah. I know. But it was either that or leave my band in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, yeah.
On the side of the road. I mean, I didn't really have an option. So.
Touche.
Oh, well.
So you get to pick the song to close this thing out with.
Oh, my gosh. I forgot what I was going to pick.
I think you mentioned Asphalt and Concrete.
Oh, that's right.
At least I hope so, because I love that song.
Oh, yay. Asphalt and Concrete. My mom loves the song. We were just talking about it because she goes, did you just come up with boots turn to high heels to turn to bare feet? And I said, well, I didn't come up with it. I lived it. And she was like, okay. So the song is about me moving to Austin when I was 18 and from a small town in New Mexico to a big city.
It's like for anyone that's ever done 6th Street the right way, right/wrong way.
Oh my gosh, we did it the wrong way every weekend in college.
Touche. Well, I'm going to play that song here in a second. But Bri, thank you so much for coming on the show. This was an awesome interview. And if anyone's listening that has not listened to Bri's music, just go through and listen to all the albums because they're all great. And this was a blast.
Oh, thank you so much. And I'm so glad we got the time to do this. This was a blessing.
Yeah, for sure.
Another quarantine silver lining.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, this is Asphalt and Concrete.
Stay alive when it gets a little hotter. I can survive on just a little water. I can be all alone and not feel the slightest bit bothered. But this dusty desert girl drifted to the city. The bright lights made even the worst sin look pretty. I spiraled downward, my mama would say, what a pity. Well, in my defense, it was an Austin moonrise, and I was left unsupervised. I lost myself in the middle of 6th Street. Boots turned to high heels, which turned into bare feet. Whiskey made me opinionated, overserved and overstimulated. Neon lights put off a different kind of heat. You can't plant a cactus in asphalt and concrete. Well, I'm into sunsets and I love the sand, but I wasn't myself in a disrupted land with buildings